And we are live. This is the Wrap It Up on Blast Raps postgame show. As always, my name is Sheldon Alexander, and this episode of Wrap It Up is brought to you by Clean Cuts Barbershop, 2013 Danforth Avenue in the East End of Toronto. Clean Cuts, the multicultural barbers that will always keep you fresh for any and all occasions. So go see Skip and the crew. And as a wise man once said, tell them that I sent ya. Check them out on Instagram at Clean Cuts Toronto or give them a call, 416-917-4833 to book your appointments now. Raptors fans, it's all right. We knew the winning streak. They weren't going to win every game for the rest of the year.
Yep.
It wasn't possible. But you go into the break, the Raptors finally lose. Their winning streak ends at 15, and their road winning streak ends at 10. And to be honest, I was probably way more impressed with the road winning streak being at 10 than I was with the overall winning streak being at 15. But it's all good. Raptors fall to the Nets, 101-91. And it's almost the reverse of what happened against the Pacers in the sense that when you're playing a team in the regular season, so close after the other game, it gives them a chance to really kind of regroup against you, but also dig into stuff that didn't work that they could change and alter and figure it out. But overall, too, also just get hyped up because the Nets came out a lot more hyped up, I thought, than the Raptors did in this game. So, hey, credit where credit's due. The Nets win and end the Raptors winning streak 101-91. Again, my name is Sheldon Alexander. Thank you guys for tuning in to this, the only live and interactive Toronto Raptors post-game show there is on Twitter at Shell Alexander, taking your comments and questions there. Same thing goes for Instagram. Comments and questions at Sheldon Alexander. And you know what? Yes, the Raptors lost this game. Of course, we're going to talk about this game, but also because it's the last game of the first half, we're also going to take the opportunity to take your comments and questions on what you make of the Raptors' first half of the season. So send us those comments and questions as well. And of course, we will read those later on in the pod. As always, if you are unable to catch the full pod, we got you covered as well on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube. As always, like and subscribe, rate us, rank us, subscribe, all those fun things depending on whatever platform you choose to rock with this with. Support the movement that is the Wrap It Up podcast, the only live and interactive Toronto Raptors post-game show there is, because we continue to rep the defending NBA champion Toronto Raptors. I'm joined by my guy Q. Q, how you doing, man? Despite the loss, how are you feeling? How's your Wednesday evening going? How are you feeling heading into this pod?
I'm good, man. Had a day off work. Hung out with the kids.
Yeah.
Teacher strikes and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
I mean, Raptors, it's All-Star weekend, officially All-Star weekend. Mm-hmm. I'm good, man.
Yeah.
I'm good, man.
I mean, obviously, you'd want to go in on a high note with a win, but I'm going to be honest and I'm going to say, it doesn't really matter that they lost. Is it that big of a deal that you won 15 of 16 heading into the break as opposed to 16 in a row? It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But, and maybe that's just my nature to always try to find the positives. And also just the fact that, overall, if you look at it, Raptors are 40-15 heading into the break. That's their best record ever in franchise history. Ever at this point. They're second in the Eastern Conference, third in the entire NBA. Yeah. And when you look at all the injuries they had to go through, when you look at what you thought this team might have been without Kawhi Leonard, it's tough to be upset going into the All-Star break, no?
Yeah. There's nothing to complain about.
Yeah.
Bad shooting night.
It happens. 15
wins. For the first time this year almost. So it's.
Yeah. And this game, for them to lose by 10, I'd have to go through all the box scores, but I bet you I could count on one hand the amount of times the Raptors have lost by double digits this season.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like it's close games for the most part that they've been in for the entire year. And at the end of the day, again, I think the way that the Brooklyn Nets just came out in this game right from the beginning, they came out with a sense of aggression. They came out with a better sense of urgency that the Raptors, not named Serge Ibaka, right? Didn't have. And the one thing, if I'm going to look from last game to this game and kind of make comparisons, I thought the Raps would do a better job on Karis LeVert. And they did for the most part. He had 37 in the last game, 20 in this game, but 20 shots, 20 field goal attempts to get to 20 points. I'd say the Raps did a better job on Karis LeVert in this game. The problem is the other guys. And I think especially early, this was one of those games where you saw the Raptors' desperate need for Marc Gasol to come back. Yeah. Because what Jared Allen and DeAndre Jordan were able to do in the paint kind of exposed the Raptors, again, especially not named Serge Ibaka, right? What did you think of that?
Yeah, I understand it's a perimeter game, so you have to defend on the perimeter, but I think the Raptors need to do a better job, especially the bigger guys, the forwards, of getting back and helping to rebound once that shot goes up. Mm-hmm. Serge can't do it all himself.
No.
Right? And you're battling, right? Serge, remember, Serge, if we're taking it back to old school basketball, Serge is a 6'10" power forward going up against DeAndre Jordan, who's 7 foot, is a center. Or Jared Allen, who is, I think he's 6'11", 7 foot, and he's a center, right? So Serge is undersized in that position. So the Raptors need to do a better job of crashing the boards and helping on, especially the defensive end, to get rebounds.
Totally agree. And I think it was a thing where Serge Ibaka, especially if he has to carry the scoring load, which he did for the majority of the game. Yeah. And I think that Serge getting buckets was kind of the only reason this game was close, was within 10 points, because it seemed like as soon as the Nets were about to pull away, Serge would either knock down a three or make a big play inside. But Serge Ibaka finished with 28 points in this game, 28, 9 rebounds, 2 blocks for Serge, but 10 of 17 shooting. Serge took 10 threes in this game, but he made 5 of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, tough to bring up anything negative about Serge Ibaka in this game, because he had a great game, I thought. And if not for him, this game would have been very ugly. Because early on, Nick Nurse tried to go to Chris Boucher, and Boucher missed a lot of threes, wide open threes. And after that, pulled the plug on Boucher. We didn't even see him in the second half. Chris Boucher, now, there were people kind of, going at Chris Boucher online, on the Twitter sphere and all that. And I'm going to tell you what I said, Q, just because these are kind of my thoughts on Chris Boucher, and I think you're going to be on the same page here. But I said, I will never slander Chris Boucher because he's Chris Boucher, and I'm just happy for him to be here, meaning getting legit minutes on the Toronto Raptors.
Exactly.
I can't knock Chris Boucher.
No.
Whatever he does is gravy, no?
Exactly. And I think sometimes we have to understand, I know we'd all love to have that 200-foot player that just, is going to hit all their shots on the offensive end. It's going to grab every rebound and then play stellar defense. But there's not too many guys out there like that, right? Yeah. Chris Boucher's role on this team is hustle, contest shots, rebound.
Yeah.
Any basket you get from Chris Boucher is a bonus.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally agree.
So, yeah, he missed some shots. So what? Fred VanVleet missed shots. Kyle missed shots. What was Siakam's box score?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So to say, he should never shoot, or he needs to work on everybody needs to work on their game.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? You can't be mad because Chris Boucher missed shots. That wasn't the difference in the game.
Yeah. I was kind of interested in the fact that he had such a short leash on Chris Boucher. I thought that was kind of weird that he never really got another chance, but it just kind of showed Nick Nurse's continued, movement with the Young Bucks, where when need be to kind of send a message and show that he's not happy with their play, he will have the quick leash, the quick hook on them, and, sit them down and really make them think about the things that they do to make them successful. And Boucher had 2 rebounds in his 9 minutes, but still in this game where it's against DeAndre Jordan and Jared Allen, you got to know that a lot of your focus has to be on the paint.
Right.
And getting on the glass and boxing out and those little things, like paying a little extra attention to those big man type things other than, just shooting the 3 because you can. Right? I think that might be the kind of the message. But again, overall, it's a reminder that Chris Boucher is an undrafted rookie that started playing basketball 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, oh yeah, reminder, slow down, relax. It's all good. It's okay. He's still on a learning curve.
Right.
And Marc Gasol comes back after the All-Star break.
That's basically it, right? Like
Yeah.
the Raptors know who they are and what they are, right? When it gets down to late March, early April, a lot of these guys ain't seeing the court.
Yeah.
Right, unless they're playing Atlanta or Orlando or one of those teams, right? Like it's time to get ready for the playoffs. So I think when you see Stanley Johnson, Boucher, Matt Thomas, when you see those guys in the game, or the way Nick Nurse coaches them, and the kind of the short leash, and it's more teaching. It's more the long haul, right? Because the Raptors season isn't. If you're putting the Raptors seasons on the back of Chris Boucher and Matt Thomas and even Terrence Davis to some point,
for sure.
It's going to be a short. In May, we might be watching other teams play.
But it's also the message that a lot of coaches try to employ where, like, they know they go with what they can trust. Right. So everyone's always mad about why does Patrick McCaw play so much?
Right.
And it's because Nick Nurse knows what he's going to get from Patrick McCaw night in and night out.
Right.
And that's going to be hard defense. He's going to run around, chase around perimeter guys, and maybe hit an open shot. But that's what they're banking on, and that's what you're going to get every single night. And with some of the young guys, when like the messages need to be sent, that's where you get Boucher getting the quick hook, or Terrence Davis, as we saw earlier on in the season, right? And then he bounced back. Same thing with Matt Thomas, right? Like those guys are still developing their NBA games and what their actual role is with the team. So Matt Thomas, even Jack was begging for Matt Thomas to get more minutes. Yeah. But literally, if Matt Thomas isn't shooting the ball, he's not serving a purpose on the team.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's not serving a purpose on the floor. So
who are you putting Matt Thomas in for? And then that guy you're taking out who was guarding who? Karis LeVert or even Joe Harris
or Dinwiddie. Yeah.
Matt Thomas is getting torched.
But that's why Patrick McCaw plays so much. And we were talking about this during the game, right? That's why I'm bringing it up now. We were talking about the fan base's obsession with Patrick McCaw's minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not that big of a deal, right? To me, it's pretty simple. Like, he plays because Nurse can trust him to play hard defense every night. That's it. But yeah, I mean, there's lots going on in the chat right now. People are wondering about, do they need to add size in the middle? And, I'm reading this because there's a rumor floated, as Michael Grange said, don't get your hopes up, but there was a potential or the thought of maybe a Tristan Thompson in the buyout market. And I think a lot of those things are more so based on how comfortable they feel with the health of Marc Gasol.
Right.
Do you think they need to add a big in the buyout market? People are throwing out Bismack, which I don't even know if Bismack's available or if that's been a rumored buyout, but the chat seems to be buzzing about adding a big. What do you think?
I've been saying that even before the trade deadline, and this, it's not so much the health of Serge or even Marc Gasol, it's the fact that Boucher is still on that regiment where we might not see him again for 2 weeks, right? Mm-hmm. So seeing that and knowing you're going up against Milwaukee, Philly, Boston, right, Indiana, that have bigs and that rebound. And especially the way Serge is playing, if this continues, especially going into the playoffs, your best lineup is having Serge and Marc together,
That's
right?
Fair.
Which means there's nobody coming off the bench with any type of size to give those guys a spell. Right?
Yeah.
So that's why I was saying that, exactly, right? So that's why I was saying, if Masai is to make a move, it is to add some depth up front because like Serge at the 4, Pascal at the 3, offensively, that's your best lineup.
Yeah. The other thing, too, is the Nets are a difficult team to gauge this against. Like, Jared Allen being replaced then by DeAndre Jordan, like, that's a tough matchup for a lot of the way how the NBA's played now, right? And the way that the Nets play in terms of everything's either a layup or a 3 by design. That's how they play. And they work that to perfection, especially early on in the game. But the point remains, the way that they play with their big guys, that is a difficult team to match up against when you're not at full strength. So, to jump to conclusions about how the desperate need for another big in this matchup, it's a tough one. It's a tough one for sure. But if we look at kind of the talking points in this game, mentioned Serge having a massively big game. We mentioned the bench struggling. At last check, the bench in this game was minus 18
Yeah.
compared to, just getting outscored by 18 points to the Nets bench, which, good minutes played by the Nets bench. We mentioned DeAndre Jordan again coming up big.
But I think the Nets bench, like if you're looking, like the Nets are a team built for a team that has Kyrie and KD, right?
Totally.
So they're not bringing undrafted guys off the bench. They're not bringing rookies. Like their bench guys are legit veterans in this, like DeAndre Jordan, Wilson Chandler, Garrett Temple. Like these guys
been in the league.
They're not stars, but these guys have stuck around in the league so long because they do all the right things.
Yep.
The fundamentals are down. They're going to make open shots, right? So comparing that with our up and comers,
Matt
right?
Thomas and Terrence
right?
Davis.
Our projects is completely. I would expect that 9 times out of 10.
And also for the Raps undrafted rookie bench, right? Because you're talking Matt Thomas, Terrence Davis, Chris Boucher.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know Rondé included in there too.
Yeah.
But those 3 dudes, if you really think about this whole season, how many times has that bench no-showed? Again, you could probably count it on one hand, right?
Yeah.
So these games happen. You're just not going to hit shots, and you're going to lose 1 out of 16 games when that happens. And the reason I'm saying this is because I'm going through kind of the rough list that I make in terms of talking points. There's something else that comes up, and Kyle Lowry was in foul trouble in this game.
Right.
I thought maybe there was one call that you might have beef with for Kyle Lowry's foul trouble, his 5 fouls that he had. Maybe one call I'd have a problem with. But there's a lot of people in the chat right now talking about the refs. Gordon says one-sided referee calls until late in the 4th. And says, Sheldon, I know they can't win every game, but the refs must have done their orientation with Tony Brothers. They had it in for us and finally blow the whistle when it would not make a difference. Here's what I'm going to ask you, Q. Okay. Do we really believe that, or are people watching this game and being heavily influenced by what they're hearing on the broadcast? Did you have an issue with the reffing in this game to the point where you thought the whistle was heavily tilted against the Raptors?
No, I think the one play I could maybe name is the I think it was the 4th or 5th foul on Kyle. Mm-hmm. It was called a blocking.
The block, yeah.
The block. But how many foul calls are you really going to get shooting threes?
It's true,
right? Like I didn't really see too much. Like maybe Serge could have got an extra calls, but it wasn't nothing like definite fouls. It's if it's 2 guys battling for the ball, they came up with it.
Yeah,
that's just what it is, right? I didn't see anything that I would say like these 2 or 3 calls really cost us games or really cost us the run.
Same. And I mean, if you know the pod, I'm never really blaming the refs. So I'm definitely not going to blame the refs in this game.
But I think if we're going to be blaming the refs, we could, like, even during the 15-game streak, the Raptors are not going to get the majority of the calls. It's just not the way it's ever been.
But also it's a style of play.
But that too.
Right? Like they're a very finesse
team. But they've never ever like there's
hold on. DeMar got to the line. Kawhi got to the line. But that's style of play. Right? Like
exactly.
Karis LeVert is driving to the cup time after time after time. And the reason why I'm not blaming the refs, because there were times where he was upset with the refs because he wasn't getting calls either.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
The reason why I brought up what people are hearing on the broadcast is because those points aren't emphasized as much as the missed calls against the Raptors, right? So when Karis LeVert drives to the basket and the camera's still on him and he's staring down the ref being like, really? Like you could hear him saying, come on, like seriously? Yep. Like there were just bad calls going both ways. So I have a hard time blaming the refs at any point, but I'm definitely not going to blame the refs in this game, especially when the Raptors just didn't shoot the ball well. To me, it's that plain and simple.
To me, that's what it was, right? Fred hit some I guess clutch shots, right? But he first half, what did he even end with?
Freddie came on strong at the end, so his line doesn't look as bad. He finished with 22 points. He was 4 of 10 from 3, 8 of 19 overall. But I would say he came on at the end when they kept getting it to 10 but couldn't get it under.
Exactly.
You know what
That's
I mean?
the thing. Like Fred hit those shots that brought it from 13 to 10.
Yeah.
But then he missed the one that would have got it from 10 from 10 to 7.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they never really could put together. I mean, really, one solid 5-0, 6-0 run, and it's a completely different game. I think.
Totally.
But they really just couldn't. They couldn't string together good possessions back to back.
Raptors shot in this game 30% from three, 37% overall from the floor. And again, so Freddie's number's not that bad. Serge Ibaka, 10 of 17, he was really good. But you look at everyone else. Kyle Lowry was 4 of 13. I guess you'll take that. Pascal Siakam, 6 of 17. I think Pascal really struggled in this game.
Yep.
He was 1 of 6 from 3. And the 1 3 that he did hit was a crazy buzzer beater at the end of the third quarter. So he really struggled. And as mentioned, the bench. Boucher was 1 of 3. McCaw was 1 of 6. Terrence Davis was 0 of 6. We haven't really seen that from Terrence Davis that often this season, but he was 0 of 5 from 3 in this game. So when your shooting numbers are that bad and it's threes that you're missing a lot of, to then complain about foul calls is a stretch for me anyways. But hey,
I think everything that just reading through is that you're hearing the complaints. Like we just read. So Patrick McCaw was 1 of 6, but Terrence Davis was 0 of 6. But nobody in here is saying Terrence Davis should not shoot.
Yeah. Nobody's
You know what
saying
I mean?
trade Terrence Davis like I'm seeing trade Patrick McCaw.
Yeah, like
in here.
it's just like, you know what? I think we got to remember, first off, Toronto were NBA champs. We're still the champs until June. Okay. On top of that, we just won 15 straight. Sure, 16 is better than 15, but to get to 15 it was a feat, right?
It's a great accomplishment.
It's only happened. It's the only time it's ever happened, right? So it's just like we can't be now ready to trade everybody away and change our whole style because what got us to 15 is the same way they played today. They just didn't hit their shots.
Yeah. As Lisa says on Twitter, Lisa says, we beat the Nets twice before. There's no need to overreact to this game. Raps won 15 games. Proud of the guys. Right?
That's it.
Totally true. Gordon says the Bucks lost too.
Yeah.
So
and the
we'll
Bucks got beat, like really beat by Indiana.
Diaz on Instagram says, got to give the boys their props. 15 straight wins. They did their thing. Off night, on to the next. Glow Girl smile. Defense in the second half was amped up. Couldn't get a run going. Totally agree. That happens, right? We the Mutt. As Fred always says, flush it. On to the next.
That's it.
All right.
Right. I think at this point, with the Bucks losing, the Celtics lost last night.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't hurt you at all. Like this is like right. If it was a month ago when 2nd and 6 was like a game apart, then we couldn't afford a game like this. But now this streak actually allowed us to have one of these games every so often.
Yeah.
Which
totally
you're going to have, and it doesn't hurt you.
Totally agree. DVAD on Instagram says, before this streak, they were in 4th. Now heading to the break in 2nd. I'll take that anyway. Like, I'm glad to see the fan base, for the most part.
Yeah.
For the most
looking
part.
at the positive.
Yeah. Yeah. Alex says, it stings a little, but we won't care about this loss once we make a deep run once again. New streak coming up after the break.
Right.
That's the hope, right?
Like I'm just thinking like how Mark came back after the last injury, and Norm Powell's sitting there just itching to put some shots up. So like we have a lot to look forward to.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna let a little bad game loss to the Nets right before the All-Star break after we've won 15. I'm not gonna let that sway me at all.
So Len brings up this point here, which we kind of talked about in the room as it was happening. But he said, Jack pointed out as well, Thomas had 15 points in a game versus the Nets and yet only got 4 minutes in this game. I would have loved to see him play instead of McCaw. So we kind of touched on this already, right?
Right.
There's two sides of the floor.
Exactly.
And in this NBA, what ends up happening a lot is you end up trading points. And you can't do that when you're trying to come back. You actually need to get stops. And that's why Patrick McCaw's in the game. Right. And you'll see him in the game with Kyle or with Fred because so that those guys aren't chasing around Karis LeVert or whoever.
Exactly.
So if you have Matt Thomas in there and he's doing that, does he still have the legs to hit the threes? Also, Matt Thomas, it's not like he's getting his own shot.
But I think you also got to remember that Karis LeVert had 37 in that game.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not putting that all on Matt Thomas.
No.
So,
I know what you're saying.
So Matt Thomas hits 2 or 3 threes and gets 9 points. What did he give up on the other end?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Right? So like the defense in the second half was decent. They got a few stops. They just couldn't hit on the other side.
Yeah.
So yes, maybe if you put Matt Thomas, maybe they hit on the other side. But did they get that stop on the play before?
And also, too, much like Chris Boucher, let's temper our expectations of what Matt Thomas is. And remember, there's a guy named Norman Powell who's playing really, really well, who hasn't played in a while. And, you know, he's going to be a pretty big part of the rotation. And there won't be many Matt Thomas even thoughts of minutes, right? Yeah. Once Norm comes back. So it's all right. The Raps are in a very good spot, right? That you can get spot minutes and maybe the odd, you know, show up from Matt Thomas, but it's not something that you're going to bank on consistently. And it's not something you're going to bank on. You're not going to say, oh no, we're down. Let's get Matt Thomas. Maybe he can save us this game. That's not,
like I said,
that's not a thing.
If you're banking on anybody outside of Serge and Norm coming off our bench and saving us, saving our season, it's going to be a short season. It's just not going to happen that way.
Totally agree. And, you know, mentioned earlier, so I guess we can all sum this up, right? Like, at the end of the day, tough loss for the Raps. They just didn't have it, didn't shoot the ball well. Serge Ibaka did his thing to keep it close. The bench really got outscored in this game. Kyle Lowry was in foul trouble, but with Kyle Lowry on the floor, your man's Kyle Lowry did finish with a triple-double.
Yep.
12 points, 12 assists, 11 rebounds. For Kyle, you take that, right? You take that. Pascal didn't really shoot the ball that well in this game at all, but he's still kind of figuring it out, being the man, right? And that's okay. You know, the shot selection at times I kind of worry about, but at the end of the day, it's all right. And it's interesting because you got to remember, this could be a first-round matchup, Raptors versus Nets. And I'd still feel very comfortable or confident in the Raptors to win this series, right? Like that doesn't change after this game. So end of the day, no big deal. Raptors lose 101-91. The winning streak is over at 15, but it's a good run. Best run in franchise history. Same thing with their road record, 10 straight wins on the road. But again, Raptors, bigger topic. Let's end the podcast talking about your overall thoughts on the first half of the season. Because the Raptors finish 40-15, second place in the East, third in the entire NBA. Overall, how do you rate this first half of the season for the Toronto Raptors? I'm asking you, and I'm also asking the people in both chats as well.
I'm super impressed. With all the injuries, with all the man games lost, like if you would have told me this back in September, I never thought we would have been anywhere near second place.
Yeah.
Right? I think we are the second best team in the East. I'll say that. At full strength.
Okay.
But when you have Kyle missing double digit games, Pascal missed them. Your best player missed a month, right? Marks is now on his second stint. Norm's on his second stint, right? Like,
yeah.
There hasn't
Serge
been
missed 10 games or 11 or something.
Right? Like, what we say? Like, Terrence Davis is the only Raptor to play every game.
Yep. Right?
The Raptors should not be where they are right now. So, you know, if you're giving them a grade, it has to be an A+.
Len writes in and says, I watched Paul Pierce earlier say that he would bet his house that the Raptors would win this game. I knew we were in for a tough night. Fuck Paul Pierce. That's pretty good. Here's my thing. We all know, start of the year, I said I thought the Raptors would finish anywhere between 5th and 8th in the Eastern Conference. And the main reason why I said that was because I thought with this team and no Kawhi or no superstar to go out and win you games on nights when your team really doesn't have it, right. I thought when the injuries started to come, because we knew the injuries would come, I thought this team would really falter and struggle, and that's why they would be again from 5th to 8th. I was completely wrong because the way that they were able to handle the injuries, they showed way more depth than I thought they had. And let's be honest, if everyone listening is being honest,
But,
anyone would have believed that this
I
team
mean,
had,
I
right?
mean, if we're gonna keep it a buck, Nick Nurse didn't think they had this much depth, right?
For sure.
Because he was running 6-man rotations at the beginning of the year.
Totally true.
So,
Totally
you know,
true.
I think even down to Masai have to be pleasantly surprised with the way the Raptors are going into this All-Star break.
Yeah, and I mean, just the way that you look at it now, I'm completely surprised. I think the Raps have done an exceptional job. I think Nick Nurse has done an exceptional job. The organization top down in terms of getting these guys to fit in to the system, or guys that fit into the system or fit the playbook, meaning you have to hustle, you have to play hard. I really still think the turning point of the season was Nick Nurse just making that proclamation to Rondé and Stanley Johnson. Hey, there's a championship level of defense that we play, that we demand. Right. And if you're not at that level, you're not playing. And I think that really set the tone for this team, that everyone had to then follow suit and do the same, whether you're Matt Thomas, whether you're Norman Powell, whether you're Terrence Davis, whether you're Rondé. That's just how it had to be. And I think that was really the key of success to this Raptors team, because when you're talking about the stints of injuries and Serge is out, okay, well, we know when Serge is in the game, that's 19 points a night. Serge was dropping when he's starting, right? Kyle's putting up 20 a night. Freddie's putting up like 18. Pascal's putting up 25. But when you remove all those guys from the lineup, the thing that sustained was the defense and the ability to turn that defense to offense. So now when Matt Thomas is coming in or Terrence Davis is coming in, they're not in the same positions that Pascal or Kyle are in. Right. They're shooting easier shots because you're getting out in transition, you're running, you're pushing the pace, pushing the tempo, and relying on your defense. And I think that is the beauty of what Nick Nurse has done to start this season. Demand a certain level of expectation at the defensive end, and everyone has followed suit. And I think, that's been the main key for this team. And, in terms of what happens in the second half of the season, I don't know. Someone just asked me here, Sheldon, do you think now that we can win a championship? Right? And that's obviously based off what I thought at the start of the season. Right. And I'll say this. To me, the regular season and playoffs are still different. Right? It's a different animal. It's a different ball game. So what happens in the playoffs, I don't know. Right? I'm not going to claim to know. I still think, I thought this at the start of the year, and I still think this now, you win a round this year in your title defense, that's a win. I'll take that. Now, do you need to make the conference finals or, win 2 rounds, get back to the NBA finals? Me personally, I don't think so. I think the playoffs are a different ball game. You can win a lot of games in the regular season, as mentioned, playing hard, playing defense, night in, night out, giving that consistent effort. But the playoffs is still a different beast. And as we saw last year, as it was emphasized with Kawhi, it comes down to the best players being the best players. Right. And how that shapes out in the playoffs, I don't know. I'm not ready to sit here and be like, going back to the NBA Finals. I'm not there yet. Yeah. Are you? He's thinking. He's thinking, folks.
Proclaiming it, I'm not putting money on it. I think it's possible.
Well,
right.
KG once told us, man, anything is.
I've been saying from the jump that there's not really an Eastern Conference team that I can say you can't win that series, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think Milwaukee's proven it yet in the playoffs. Philly, we all seen how their season's going. Boston is, you know what I mean? I just don't think that there's anybody you can go in scared against. Yeah, so I think yes, there is. The Raptors playing Raptors basketball, playing how they have for the last month. If any semblance of that comes in playoff time, they can go back to the championship. Now, when you get to the Western Conference now.
Oh, hold on. We're okay.
No, I'm sorry. But usually, the question was a championship, right?
I'm listening.
The question was a championship, right? Now you have to face LeBron, or you're facing Kawhi, or facing James Harden. I think they're superstars for a reason, right? Those are guys that, maybe not Harden, but LeBron, AD, KD, PG, all those guys are guys that can win a series for you.
And
right?
they got 2 of them.
Right, exactly. Both teams, both LA teams have 2 of them.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that.
Heck, even the Rockets have 2 of them.
Yeah. So
And
right.
then, like,
So
6th.
so that. I mean, that would be.
Here's my thing though. Like overall, like I'm not, and part of this is a championship, right? Part of this is a championship hangover where like I'm not going to be mad regardless of what happens in the playoffs.
Right.
That's part of that is a championship hangover. But part of it is also going back to, I've said this throughout this whole year. I don't compare this team to last year's team because last year's team was championship or bust. Like that was the expectation. You got Kawhi. You're putting all your chips in the table saying, yes, I think we can win a championship this year. That's why you make those moves. That's why you fire the coach of the year. That's why you trade the face of your franchise. This year, it's not the same. So in my mind, like I'm not comparing it to this year. I'm comparing it to the other years. Whereas, the other Kyle and DeMar years where it's like, okay, well, let's see how the matchups play out. Okay, who are we playing in this series? Who has the best player in this series? How's that going to shape out? And it's just a different vibe in any playoff series when you're walking in and you don't have the best player, right? Yep. Like I think back to that Kyle and DeMar year where they made the run to the conference finals. They lost to the Cavs, but they had some tough series against, Paul George's Indiana Pacers and Dwayne Wade, an aged Dwayne Wade, but still gave the Raps a good run. And that's what happens in the playoffs when you don't have the best player, like head and shoulders, like with Kawhi, you knew you had the best player. Right. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where I still need to see the playoffs, watch the playoffs, enjoy the playoffs. And to be really honest, talking about the playoffs, I almost feel bad because it's making me, I feel like I'm not giving enough attention to how good this season has been and the accomplishments made in this season already, just because you've gone out and showed, okay, Kawhi left. Now we good. We didn't fall apart. Yeah. We didn't break down. We're not tanking, right? Yeah. We're not in the lottery. Not even close to that.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, I think most, if you would ask most experts, they would have thought at this point we'd be Pascal, Fred, and probably have 3 or 4 first-round picks going into the draft.
Totally,
right?
Totally.
And Masai stood pat because because of the run that this team is on, right? So I think at this point we've already won.
Yeah,
right.
I know what you're saying. No,
compared to
that.
Like you already see what all of the so-called experts and ex-NBA players and ex-NBA coaches, what they thought we were coming in, right? And even what we think as ourselves coming in, right? Mm-hmm. Like I said, second place with all these injuries, I didn't think it would be possible. We've already eclipsed those expectations, right?
Yeah, totally agree with that. And I just think too, the other part of what's gone on so far this season for the Raptors is just when you look at how this team is playing and you think about it, you go around the league and you remove 2 starters. You remove that team's best player,
right,
and another starter off their team. So let's say you go to the Lakers and you said, all right, take LeBron off the Lakers and we'll also take off Danny Green just because that's the same guy in Toronto. What's that Lakers team doing the next season? Right? You take off Kawhi and then you take off, let's say, Lou Will. I know he's not a starter, but same thing, right? Yeah. What are the Clippers then? Right? And pick any team in the league, legit. Say, okay, Bucks, you lose Giannis and you lose, not even going to say their 2 next guys. I'll say George Hill.
Yeah.
What is that team? Right? And I think that's what I mean when I'm talking about whatever happens in the playoffs, cool. That's great. All right. I just think the accomplishment of what's being done in this regular season is super important. In the playoffs, when it comes to the playoff time, deal that when you get there.
Right.
Playoffs are about winning the championship, which we learned last year.
And it's matchup. So, like, we're in second place. I think we have the ability to stay in second place. Mm-hmm. But what happens between 3, 4, 5, and 6? I think we'll go a long way to dictating how far we can really go.
Yeah.
Right?
I'll read some comments here as I did ask the people what they thought about the second half of the season. And Jay Shutterbug says, if the Raptors make it to the conference finals and lose to the eventual champs, so be it. Lisa says, I have a feeling we can beat the Lakers. Not sure about Kawhi. I'm fine as long as we make it to the finals. Okay. JC says, I'm super happy watching the Raps this season. It's been fun, and I look forward to every next game. I kind of feel the same way too. When every big boy game's coming up, I'm excited. Do you have something there?
But I was just gonna say is like let's remain the underdogs. I'm gonna say the Raptors are not making the playoffs because they want to prove everybody wrong, and I think this is what got them to this point. Is they right? So if we just think, oh, look at the Raptors, they're gonna make the conference finals. I don't even want to put that into their heads.
Do you know what's funny? I already like laugh at the fact every time people bring up like what's Stephen A. Smith saying, what's Jalen Rose saying, what's Skip Bayless saying, and I always laugh at that because I'm like, guys, they don't watch the Raptors, right? They're not checking for Raptor games in the States. They're just not. So why do we care that much about it? But the new trend of like bringing up any American dude and what he says about the Raptors. Like people are like, oh, did you see what Jason McIntyre said? I'm like, who the hell's Jason McIntyre? And why the hell do you care about what Jason McIntyre said about the Raptors in the summer? Like he's the backup Skip Bayless, right? So like, who cares what that guy says? You don't even know who that guy is other than, oh, here's a clip that keeps popping on my timeline of him saying the Raptors are going back to the lottery. There's some dude on Get Up that we played the clip the other day, and I'm like, I literally don't know who this guy is. Never seen him before. And I'm like, and we care what this guy thinks about the Raptors? Why? Right? Like, it's so weird to me, and I'll never understand it. But, hey, whatever we need to have that chip on our shoulder that makes us a screw face cap, right? Gives that energy of the screw face cap. Okay, so be it. More comments. Diversified Youth says, I'll be honest, not exceeding my expectations. Some been drinking the ESPN Kool-Aid. Our team gave you a look at how committed they were last season. Wake up and pay attention to your squad. That's obviously in reference to the Raps being 17-5. I'm pulling that number out off the top of my head, but I think that's what it was. 17-5 last year without Kawhi Leonard. Len says, this season has been the most fun for me. The fact that this team does not easily roll over and they play with such heart in every game is impressive. Totally agree. People talking about what's happening this weekend at the All-Star game because Nick Nurse is coaching Team Giannis. Giannis picked his African brethren, Pascal Siakam and Kyle Lowry.
Yep.
Also, there's quotes in an ESPN story about how Giannis, if we know, just had a kid. And he said, will it improve his game? If you look at Fred VanVleet, will it improve his shooting? And he said, if you look at Fred VanVleet and how much better of a shooter Fred VanVleet became after Freddie Jr. was born. And I'm reading those quotes and I'm laughing, but there's part of me that's like, yo, this man really is checking the Raptors a lot right now. I don't want to buy into the whole.
And I think that's like you got to remember that's what Giannis is thinking right now. Right? He's not thinking, oh, we're in first place, we're the team to beat. It's you're not the team to beat until you beat the champions, right? Mm-hmm. So they got to beat us first, and that's all he's thinking about, right? Yeah. So forget what everybody else is saying. Listen to what Giannis is saying. How he's watching the Raptors. We are the team to beat.
Yeah. Gozy says, real talk, there's nobody Toronto is afraid of, period.
Shouldn't be.
True. I agree with that. And also, I think Nick Nurse hitting his second go around in the playoffs. We already know Nick Nurse is a good coach, and we saw him. He obviously had to make a lot of adjustments last year in a long ass playoff run all the way to winning the NBA championship. But now in your second go around with, there's no Kawhi, but you still have the same other players, right? So you know a bit more what moments guys can cook in, maybe how to pull the right strings with Freddie and Norm, who struggled at the beginning of the playoffs, maybe how to manage Kyle's minutes a little more, things like that, how to get Marc Gasol going, right? Like little things
Siakam to that next level.
For sure. K2's Garnett says, here's the deal. Always thought that there's no one that I'm afraid of. I don't think the East has that superstar that can just get you buckets like Kawhi did last year. Go on.
I think again you gotta temper your expectations. So yes, we're not to be scared of anybody, but Kawhi also it wasn't just his buckets. Kawhi also his defense, right? So you take Kawhi out of those games, And what does Giannis end up with
It's true.
in game 3, 4, 5?
What does Ben Simmons do? Right? Like Kawhi eliminated Ben Simmons from that Sixer series.
Yeah.
Right? And the games that he wasn't guarding Jimmy Butler was when Jimmy Butler went off.
Right.
So I know there's no Jimmy Butler, but the point being made that is not just about the walking 30 piece that Kawhi was. It was the walking 30 piece and the defense that he was playing, which we always point back to that crazy, what was it, overtime game in game 3 against the Bucks,
Yep.
where to me, the play that just showed the heart and soul of Kawhi, as cliche as it sounds, when he gets to steal and he's going back the other way for the dunk. And you can see that my guy is dead tired, right? And everyone else is dead tired because they're like half chasing him down because everyone just played an hour of basketball, right? But you can see it's just like every last bit of, energy that he has left was put into the defensive end, getting the steal, and then getting the dunk. Like that was the epitome of what Kawhi Leonard was. So it's just showing that, it's a reminder that it's both ends of the floor, right?
Definitely.
More comments. Immeasurable says Raptors can definitely make it back to the finals. I like this. Diversified youth. Ballers don't care what U.S. media says. I respect it. Glow Girl Smile says media don't watch Raptors games except for Kendrick Perkins. Perk's been everywhere in Toronto media the past couple days, like just gobbling it up because he's just tweeting about the Raps nonstop. Graham checks in and says, doesn't matter what we say or what we're gonna do, it only matters what we do. I don't agree. Let's stay the underdogs. Agreeing with what Q said.
And I think Perk just wants to get back to Toronto so he can go back at Drake. Just trying to get close enough to snuff Drake.
That's pretty funny. Alex says Giannis is already dreaming of the Danforth. For those who are not familiar with the city of Toronto, the Danforth is Greektown.
Yep.
Right? That's a Greek area of the city. Taste of the Danforth is always a great time as we grew up in the east end of Toronto.
Definitely.
Shouts to the Danforth. I'm sure Giannis has already gotten a preview of the Danforth, you'd assume, no? Somehow one of his stops here. You would assume they're here how many times a year, right?
Yeah, of course. Must.
But again, this has been a great first half of the season, and I know the Toronto Raptors, it might not have ended on the high note that some have hoped, as if they did win their 16th game, it would have been the first time that a team had won 16 games heading into the All-Star break since the 1990-91 LA Lakers. And to be on that board, because I think there are a couple other teams on that board, a couple of the Celtics teams, but on that board, I think it was like 3 of the 4 teams to have that long of a streak of at least 13 games heading into the All-Star break. 3 of the 4 made the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
So, hey, lots of stats floating around on both sides. I just bring up my goal here. What I try to do is just bring up stats, and people can do whatever they want to do with those stats. I'm not telling you right or wrong. I'm just bringing up the stats, and I'm not a hater. I'm not a booster. I'm just telling you the stats, and you can decide, because people are going at homie on ESPN who was saying the Raptors win streak, look at the teams they beat, blah, 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 blah. And people are like, he's hating. And it's like, well, the statistic was that the Raptors' opponents' winning percentage during their streak was .409, which was the 5th lowest all time among the 41 15-game winning streaks in NBA history. So that means out of the 41 15-game winning streaks, it was the 5th lowest opposing team's winning percentage. That's who the Raptors have played. So basically the 5th worst sked.
Yeah.
Or easiest sked, let's say. Again, to me, as I stated on another pod, that's just a stat. So you can look at that board and say, hey, they had easy games or whatever. You still got to win the games. Yep. And to get to 15, the biggest thing is that you're showing the effort. And that's the takeaway that I have. So whether you win 15 straight or 15 out of 16, the lesson that I'm coming out of this is that it's effort. And you have the championship effort and mentality when I tell you that the 8 other teams that won 15 straight games, of the 7 previous teams, 4 of them went on to repeat as champions. Right? So
Another thing
8th
that's
defending
sad-
champion
Yep.
to win 15 straight games in a season. Of the 7 previous teams, 4 of them went on to repeat as champs. So all I'm taking away from that, I'm not saying that they're going to win the championship again or they're getting back to the final. I'm just saying they have that mentality, that championship pedigree remains. And that to me is incredible. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, and I mean, even with that low streak stat, that doesn't take into a fact that you're missing 2 rotation players
In each of those games.
in each at least 2 in each of those games,
Totally agree.
right? Because this streak goes back a long time,
Facts.
right? And if you look at even the game before the streak started, was the San Antonio game,
Which they should have won.
which they should have won. They were up and they lost that game by 1, right?
Blew it late.
Then you go back to the loss before that was the Portland game.
Also should have won.
With the Mellow Dagger,
Yeah.
which there was that last minute call that wasn't made, and then the Mellow Dagger, right?
And then was there an OKC game?
They won that.
The one with that had
The only other loss, the only other
when was
we've
the
lost.
OKC game where everyone was mad
That
about
was
the no
back
call
in,
on Chris Paul?
That was back in December.
That was way further back.
Yeah.
Wow.
The
See, everything's a blur.
The
My brain's
Raptors have
fried.
lost 4 games in
Yeah.
2020,
Okay.
right? Today, the 2 we just mentioned,
Yeah.
and the only other game was January 2nd against Miami.
Yes. When again they're missing everybody, and that was an ugly game. Wasn't that score like in the 80s?
Yeah, it was 84-76, right? So like if you
A
think
game like
about
tonight,
that,
just
right?
bad shooting.
Exactly, right? But the defense was there, obviously. So just think about that. The Raptors not easily, but
Not easily.
the Raptors could have been a 20-game winning streak, right?
I mean,
A few bounces the other way, it's a 20-game win streak. So, the team is fine. The team is fine. Let's just finish the season out on a high note and see what they can do in the playoffs.
yeah, as mentioned, bottom line, this Raptors team has made the fan base proud so far this season. Hopefully that continues on in the second half of the season. And hopefully for the second half of the season, you'll be on this ride with us here on the Wrap It Up podcast. Q, I know you will be here as well. So let the people know where they can catch up to you, maybe get your thoughts on what's going on All-Star Weekend and all that until the Raps are back. And I think their first game back is against the Suns. So until then, where can the people get caught up with you, man?
You can hit me up anytime. All social media, Twitter, Instagram, at simply_just_Q, or at DDS Caps, either myself or the homie Foots, who you also see here on the podcast from time to time. We'll get back to you on there. Also check out our website, ddscaps.com.
And again, my name is Sheldon Alexander. Thank you guys. Really appreciate it as you guys rock out with us on the second season of the Wrap It Up podcast. Again, the only live and interactive Toronto Raptors postgame show there is. Thank you guys for rocking out with us live on Twitter at Shell Alexander, as we love to take your comments and questions there. Same thing goes for Instagram at Sheldon Alexander. Hit me up at any point, guys, during this week off of Raptors games. Obviously, be trying to tweet up a storm all-star weekend and enjoy those festivities, as well as there's a heavy Raptor contingent. Raptors in the building, taking over Chicago. So it'll be a lot of fun, and hopefully you guys will tune in back with us again. Stay caught up with us on Instagram and Twitter as mentioned, but like and subscribe on iTunes, on Spotify, Google Play, SoundCloud, YouTube. Bless us with some likes, retweets, rate us. What's Bomani say? Rate us if you only give us 5 stars. Oh, no, sorry. Rate us 5 stars if you only give us 4 stars, and I'm forced to think you're a hater. Is that the line? My bad, Bomani, for messing that up. But either way, the point remains. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate you guys rocking with us here on the Wrap It Up podcast, because I used to pray for times like this to rhyme like this. This is the Wrap It Up on Blast Raps post-game show, as always, unpolished and unapologetic. Until next time, see ya.
On blast.